Hello everyone, my name is Dina Sabie. I'm a PhD candidate in computer science at the University of Toronto in Canada. On behalf of my co-authors, I present our paper, A Decade of International Migration Research in HCI, Overview, Challenges, Ethics, Impacts, and Future Directions. International mobility has always been on the rise due to various economic, environmental, and political reasons. Technology is a critical tool throughout the mobility process. The paper aims to provide a holistic overview of international migration research in HCI from 2010 up to and including 2019. To do this, we queried 9 digital libraries to provide a thorough literature review. After thousands of results and multiple passes, we ended up with 152 papers about immigrants and 130 about refugees, to bring the total to 282 publications. We analyzed the papers to find where research has focused on in terms of locations, demographics, topics, and research methodologies. We found that the overall volume of work published over the last decade has increased, mainly due to the refugee crisis during the mid-2010s. Most research sites are located in the US and Germany. In general, research has focused on migrants' practical demands with a growing interest in their emotional needs and interventions. Most studies target adult Middle Eastern migrants with an emphasis on migrants themselves and not their assistive bodies. Qualitative methods are used at large in this domain with an increased interest in theoretical framing. We did cross-tabulation of the data we pulled from the literature survey. When a gender is in focus, it would most likely be female, and the research would not discuss the relationship with the host community. Work about migrants from Africa is extremely limited regardless of any factor, even though their numbers are quite large. While we have a considerable number of publications about Latin Americans, the location of these studies is mostly in the US and Canada, despite the much stronger mobility movement across countries in Latin America. No publication in our corpus exclusively studies Asian migrants in the Middle East, even though the area is home to some of the largest foreign labor community in the world. In a matter of fact, publications where the research site is the Middle East or Asia, discussion about migrant-hosting community relationship is almost non-existent. All these findings are useful. However, the literature survey did not offer us a holistic overview of the domain. There were things we could not deduce, such as the politics that governs which locations and demographics to be studied, ethical and research challenges that researchers face on the ground, the research impact, and what the future holds. Therefore, we conducted interviews with 11 researchers in this domain and asked them to comment on the literature survey data, the different challenges faced in the field, the effect of pursuing such fieldwork on themselves and their participants, real-world impact, and future trends. 2 main keywords kept appearing at our interviews to comment on the result of our literature survey: funding and access. Funding is mostly controlled by the government and NGOs who aim to find sustainable support for migrants, either within or outside their borders. Access is controlled by gatekeepers, such as NGOs and community centers, and sometimes even the government, which exert their ultimate power. We dug even deeper to illuminate other issues related to the research process rarely discussed in publications. One of them is how researchers have been exposed to mental pressure, trauma, and dilemma. They had to discuss personal details, do extra labor which causes delay in publications, were subject to controlled security and arms shooting. Some had PTSD. They would sometimes feel guilty as they feel they take advantage of their participants. And they would ask themselves, when am I collecting data and when am I not? To address these issues, we advocate for targeted research training, support protocols, scholars' involvement in revising ethical guidelines, and more open dialogue and experience sharing for the researchers' well-being. Finally, we suggest the availability of communication channels between the ethic boards and collaborating NGOs to see how the safety of the scholars can be facilitated. In terms of ethical stance, our interviews show that building trust with migrants is essential. Also, migrants can acquire benefits from research such as learning new skills, connecting with others, as well as some monetary subsidies. However, there are some ethical concerns. In particular, there is a high risk of failing to understand the cultural nuances of communities, such as hierarchies, local norms, and privacy practices. Also, there is a power imbalance between the scholars and the migrant, which is visible in non-Western environments. Parachute researchers are more common than they should, where they take what they need for their study and do not share the discoveries publicly. These concerns can also arise when working with other vulnerable groups. To address these issues, we need to build trust with the study communities. Consider if the research can do more harm than good, and be open to redefining the research scope as issues emerge. We must also design more context-specific research processes. We can also utilize approaches from social sciences and humanities about researching in non-conventional context. To discuss the future, it is expected that topics will be diversified with a focus on long-term impact of migration. It will incorporate sensitive subjects and utilize uprising computer science fields. It is forecasted that the domain will concentrate on interdisciplinarity to learn from other domains' methods and theories. Finally, we would draw approaches from HCI-4D and ICTD about working with marginalized populations and building an academic community. In terms of impact, our interviews revealed that research in this field has had excellent academic impact but limited real-life influence on migrants. To ensure that the findings are properly utilized, we need a deeper comprehension of the context through long-term engagement. We must also embrace non-academic partnership and facilitate shared value ownership. Finally, there needs to be a revision of some academic processes. In particular, we invite top HCI publication outlets to have tracks that reward prolonged studies. Supervising professors can coordinate their graduate students' work into contributing threads to long-term projects. Academic institutions should also provide space that mediate between the research domain and decision makers. Lastly, we suggest academic institutions consider reports made for non-academic partners more valuable for the academic track. In conclusion, we invite academic research to embrace some social and political differences on multiple levels and recognize that sometimes we must discuss complex, sensitive issues because it is the only route by which we can justify method choice, design decisions, and other parts of the research process. To this end, and on behalf of my colleagues, we thank you all for listening. In the full paper, you can read stories from active scholars in the field to find more about migration research in HCI and its politics and ethics. Please feel free to email us if you have any questions or comments.